Combo Nation. It's grown being Batman 123 Rock. This is our second attempt because I just can't get my shit together. We've already given our ratings for what we are going to be talking about today, which is The Flash Season 5. I gave it a 7.5 as far as our initial rating. You know, we like to do the initial rating, we talk about it, then we come back and decide, does it stay at the same rating? Does it get a better rating, or does it give a less rating? I think that's probably my favorite thing about our podcast currently. So I gave it a 7.5. Batman gave it a 7. Um, and we were talking a little bit about some of the not necessarily pros and cons, but some of the high points and some of the low points. Both of us agreed that the villain, Cicada, just was a I think the point that I was going to make, or that I was trying to make right before I had to cut off the previous video, was that we've had a lot of interesting villains that weren't executed well, right, throughout the Arrowverse and throughout seasons of the Flash and different things like that. I think this was the first time that we just had an overall bad villain. The villain just wasn't good. It wasn't about the execution. It wasn't about the pacing. It wasn't about any of that. This just wasn't a good villain for this season. Or at least for pretty much the whole season. And so it was something that we all were pretty much struggling with. But then there were also high points like Nora, and seeing the relationship between her and Barry, seeing how she gravitated towards, actually, I'll get into that a little bit later. But just seeing the relationship between Barry, Iris, and Nora, their daughter slash XS. And then, of course, seeing another side of Eobard, and kind of just, he's just a fan favorite. Anytime this guy's on screen, especially when he's being played by Tom Cavanaugh, we're all having a good time. So with that being said, I will let Batman kind of take over and start talking about some major points. I think we're going to kind of condense this into some of just the major points of the season. Then we're going to let you guys go. So go ahead, Batman.
So, season 4 ended with Nora showing up to the house, basically saying, "Hey, I screwed up." Um, so we learn more about her. She's Barry's daughter. She's a speedster. Her name is XS, her speedster name.
Yes.
And basically, she traveled back in time so she could hang out with her dad because uh, Flash never returns from Crisis. Therefore, she grew up without a father, and she wanted to get that time back. So she did that. Um, she got that time back. She came to visit him. And Iris tries to get really close to her, and she pushes her away. And she's like, "Why are you pushing me away?"
Mm-hmm.
Turns out that Iris had put a meta dampening chip in her.
Mm-hmm.
Never told her because
Yes.
she didn't want her to find out about powers because it would open up a lot of doors to, her father and stuff that she kind of just wanted to protect her from.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it drew them apart when she finds out. More on that later. But, they make up, a couple things happen. They make up. Everything's, happy and dandy. And then she goes around. They start taking out the, meta humans of the week, the villains. And eventually, a new metahuman shows up, Cicada. Um, they try to fight him off, Team Flash. They're like, "Oh, we got this." No. His dagger dampens their powers, making them literally powerless.
Yes.
They can't stop him. So, you know, they get to talking. Nora's like, "Hey, I know who Cicada is. He's in the future, and he's not supposed to show up right now. That's
Yes.
supposed to be way later.
Yeah.
So, my bad." um,
We
basically,
also
it's what
find
she said.
out that although this is our first time seeing Nora, well, actually, this is technically our second time seeing Nora time travel back into the past. Apparently, she has done this like dozens of times, right? Isn't it revealed that she had constantly been coming back and changing different things and like snooping in and seeing her dad and things like that? Didn't they like talk about that a little bit later?
I think so. I don't particularly remember.
Well, either way, she is one of the characters that is prone to just continuing to make the same mistakes over and over and over again, and so that's kind of a theme of the season, that she kind of started off doing that, but also we're seeing it unfold on a daily, well, really on a weekly basis, as she tries to get closer to her parents. Go ahead.
Yeah. Um, so basically from there, you find out Cicada was never caught in the future. Um, so they want to take down Cicada. They need a new Wells. So, you know, they start looking at different Wells and, it's kind of a comedic moment, but then they settle on Sherlock. And he's cool. I like him. Uh, he adds some humor throughout the rest of the series, but
Yeah.
the big point is they learn that when, or Team Flash learns that when Barry and Nora destroyed the satellite, pieces of it hit various pieces of tech and therefore gave it, it was infused with
Dark
dark
matter.
matter.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's how you get the metahuman of the week. But
Mm-hmm.
not just that, one of the pieces hit, was impaled, or yeah, into Cicada's chest, um, and also injured his niece Grace,
Yes.
who you learn later, like
Is
something
like an
happened to her parents,
Yeah.
and she was just dropped there. And he's like, "Look, I'm not your dad. I like he's just kind of being mean,
Yeah.
because he's not prepared for the whole thing." But over time, he begins to like her, and they become close. And then she goes into a coma after the whole event. So he's like, "Oh, well, I'm gonna kill all the metahumans,
Yep.
get vengeance for you."
And that's his
And
entire
everybody
arc.
is watching, is like, "Huh?
That's his entire
Like,
arc.
how is that gonna help anything? It won't."
We
Because
li- we
Barry
we literally do
wasn't
not have to talk
technically.
about Cicada anymore because that is his entire arc. All of that. He's just mad because a very incidental thing happened with some metahumans, and now he hates them all forever.
Well, it
Very
wasn't
dumb.
really. Barry was just destroying the satellite that DeVoe had made, and that there's no way he could have known that, but that's beside the point. Anyway,
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's super incidental,
yeah.
and he just takes it as a terrorist act, and he just blows it completely out of the water in terms of uh, not necessarily importance, but I mean the type of grudge and pain and stuff that he holds for just like everyone based off that one situation was just like, wow, this is crazy.
So that arc, like you said, he goes around,
That's
he's
his entire
killing
arc.
meta-humans throughout the entire season. But little side note, Caitlin tracks her father down, and she finds out that he was dying. So he gave himself a cure, and that gave him ice abilities. And he didn't want the same thing to happen to Caitlyn, so he gave it to her, and that's how she got her powers. She was
Always a
always
metahuman. Yep.
Killer Frost.
I
Yeah.
think that's a really good that was a really good development for that character. I liked that a lot.
Although,
I think they showed a flashback where like even as a child, Killer Frost was like protecting Caitlyn and saved her life from some incident or something like that. I think they did like a flashback or something.
yeah, she was on a bike and Killer Frost saved her or something.
Yeah.
I think she gets hit by a car or something like that. But um, he has an evil split personality, and the downside is that split personality takes full control. So
Yeah.
there's
Mm-hmm.
there's there's no reasoning with him. So they finally take him down. Killer Frost comes out and she takes him down because the whole arc is she hasn't been able to connect with Killer
I
Frost.
remember the
But
way they take him down is really stupid.
I think she shoots like an ice blast at him or something. But
Something real dumb.
um, the whole thing is that Caitlyn hasn't been able to connect with Killer Frost or hear her, and it's because she had a mental block of some sort. They use a device to help her get, talk to her.
Well,
Um,
keep in mind, I think there was some sort of. I think she gets hit by that dagger or something. There's a specific reason why she thinks that Killer Frost is gone forever, and it goes beyond just the mental block.
do you
She
remember what happened last season?
uh was it the metahuman
DeVoe,
cure or something?
no, no, bro. DeVoe took her powers. Remember
And so she believes that by taking her
that?
powers, he also took Killer Frost.
Right, but
Okay.
then we find out that he didn't take power. It's a part of her.
Yeah.
Can't really take that from her
Hmm.
specifically. All he did was dampen it or block it, something like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so they find out that Killer Frost can go toe to toe with Cicada because she was not given meta powers from the particle accelerator.
Yes.
She's technically not a full-on metahuman.
Yes.
Therefore, the dagger does nothing to her.
Yes.
She whoops Cicada and he retreats. Um, some side points, stuff I'm not really gonna go into detail. Sherlock meets a woman and he's like, "Oh, I really love this woman." It's like, "Why don't you go out with her?" And you find out that woman is the same woman that he pissed off on the other Earths, and like
Hmm.
he owes money to. They
Yeah.
like get together and threaten him. It's kind of funny. Um, but Cisco meets Camilla. I know you love her.
She's
Um,
okay.
they hit it off. Believe they start dating by the end of the season. I can't remember, but I
Hmm.
think one of the coolest moments in this season is Gorilla Grodd versus King Shark. Oh man, that was a cool fight. I'm not gonna lie.
That really was a fun fight.
And it wasn't just the fighting; it was the fact that they kind of humanized King Shark, which was kind of cool.
Yes, I like that a lot too. Hmm.
And your boy Diggle from Arrow showed up in the
Yep.
episode
John
because
always likes to
Argus
drop into Central City.
does. But King Shark kind of develops like a connection with I think one of the scientists who was working with
Yeah.
him,
Uh huh. Yep.
and it's a really nice moment.
Hmm.
But eventually, King Shark for the win takes down Grodd, and so after that, Caitlin and Cisco design a metahuman cure in the hopes that they can, for people who don't want these powers,
Yeah.
give them
Yeah.
a chance to, live a normal life. And
Yes.
Barry's like, oh, I'm gonna use that on Cicada. Like, well, you should give it to him. It should be his choice. Yeah, no, screw that. I'm gonna use it against him. And there's a whole bunch of drama, about Barry. You can't do that. And he's like, okay, you know what? You're right. It should be his choice.
Yeah.
Barry has a lot of those moments throughout the series. So he offers to help Cicada. Cicada declines. Later, uh, he reveals his identity. He's like, look, I'm a human. I'm just like everybody else. Not all metahumans are bad. And technically, you're a metahuman. So, I mean, you're kind of a hypocrite.
Yeah. Yeah. And
So he takes a metahuman cure.
he does
Oh,
take it.
yeah. Remember, they inject the metahuman cure into him, and then, oh, guess who shows up?
Other cicada.
Future Cicada, and you're like, oh my god, Future Cicada. So it's like his counterpart from the future. Nope, it's his
It's
niece,
yes, the girl that
Grace.
the girl that he's so angry about.
Mm-hmm.
trying to. She's in a coma. He's visiting her every day.
Mm-hmm.
All that good stuff, and it turns out that somehow she was able to, not somehow, basically she grew up angry as hell because he was
Mm-hmm.
so damn angry, to the point where when he decided to kind of change, she was like, "Nah, I'm not ready to change. You already done groomed me to be this evil person." Um, then there's this weird thing where they have to go inside of Cicada's mind. Or no, 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 no.
Yeah,
They have to
yeah.
go into that girl's mind. They go into her mind,
Mm.
her as a child, and I can't remember why they went in there.
Uh, I don't remember either.
They
I do remember what episode you're
they
talking
sent
about.
XS in. They sent Nora in uh, to basically. I don't know if she was trying to figure out a way to beat
Oh,
Cicada.
I think I remember. I remember. That's a little further away, I believe.
It is.
But yes, that's a little further down.
Oh,
Um,
okay. Well, we also haven't talked about what's her name as the Flash. Doesn't
the what?
doesn't no doesn't what's her name become the Flash for a little while in this season?
Who?
Candace or no Iris?
I don't think so. No, that was last season. Remember?
She was the Flash last season.
Yes.
It wasn't this season.
No, we talked about it last week.
Okay, go ahead.
Anyway, um, so
Oh no 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 no
basically,
no! We got to talk about the big one of the biggest scenes ever. Before that other cicada comes in, it's where they go back in time to figure out. They go back in time because they got to go get those different ingredients or something. They need a piece of Savitar's armor. They need this, remember when they go back and they talk to Eobard?
um, I don't.
Clever girl.
Um, that's also later because that's for the mirror gun, and we haven't gotten to that yet. But that's fine.
Oh, okay.
Um, so I'm gonna speed this up a little bit. Basically, Grace takes him home. He's injured, and she's like, "Hey, like let's do this, together." And later on, he's like, "I don't, I don't want this life for you. I'm not gonna do it." And she kills him
Yeah.
straight up.
Yeah.
Uh, and there's no coming back after that.
Yep. No
And
coming
like you
back.
said, they go into their mind, I think, to kind of, because they try to give her the cure and it doesn't work because uh, of the dagger thing on like in her head or on her forehead
Yeah.
prevents the metahuman cure from working. Um, and I think they go in there to find a way to, you know, get rid of it, but it doesn't work. So we go back to the future and we get a little more backstory on Nora. And this was one of my favorite parts of the season because this gave us more backstory. Um, Nora was a CSI, just like her dad.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, Fast forward a little bit, she comes up against Godspeed, and he blasts her with lightning, destroying the power dampener, and she gets her powers. And
Yep.
of course, she's like, "What the heck?"
Yep.
And she can't turn to her mom. Who else can she turn to? Who's a speedster
Dun, dun,
in
dun,
that
dun, 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 dun,
timeline?
dun, 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 dun. Yo.
She goes to see Thawne.
Eobard
Um,
Thawne.
and basically he consoles her, kind of teaches her the ways. He's a little reluctant at first, but uh, eventually, she kind of presses him enough, and he's like, "All right, I'll teach you some stuff." And she teaches him how to teaches him. He teaches her how to time travel uh, back to see her dad.
He teaches her a lot of stuff.
He does teach her a
He
lot.
teaches her a
Um,
lot of stuff. He teaches her about the negative speed force. So because basically she she goes back to the future because Barry tells her don't come back here now,
He
and
strands her. He takes her there.
yeah, and so she goes to Eobard, and Eobard, and she's like, "Wait a second, you time travel all the time because somehow Barry. Well, actually, this is actually consistent because what's his name? Jay Garrick pulled Barry out of the Speed Force because Jay Garrick was basically like, I can sense when you go try to time travel. And so Barry is basically saying, if you try to time travel, Nora, and come back here, I'm going to know it and I'm going to stop you. And so she goes to Eobard and says, I want to go back. I got to at least be able to apologize to my dad. Can you tell me how I can time travel without them knowing? And he was like, well, I use a different speed force. So that's the introduction to the negative speed force, which Nora eventually starts to use, and it affects her brain and makes her start acting more negatively. What he also
More evil.
teaches, yeah, more evil. What he also teaches her is how to very meticulously make changes to the timeline to where the future is virtually unaffected, which is how she was able to do so many different things. When really, at the end of the day, Eobort was basically using Nora to orchestrate um his he did have a relationship, the kind of the same thing as season one. He had his own selfish goal. Excuse me. He had his own selfish goal, but just as the relationship continued to build, he realized, dang, I actually really care about this girl, kind of like she's my daughter. Same way that he felt about Barry, when he was kind of just using Barry to get back to the future, or at least attempt to get back to the future. But all in all, he's really just manipulating her to, help him because he's basically about to be executed for all of his crimes over the centuries and centuries and centuries.
Right.
Another thing, one of my favorite scenes is that really kind of ties things together. Like you figure out, oh wow, this is how he was able to understand what things need to be manipulated in his favor, is because in order to figure out how to beat Cicada, they go back in time and they meet Eobard again. And so they talk to Eobard, and they're asking him to examine a piece of Savitar's suit. Um, and so that's when, um, basically Eobard is looking at them kind of weird, you know, and so Barry was like, yeah, my daughter's so smart, way smarter than you. She figured out that we could use Savitar's suit to, I guess, power this gun or something of that matter.
Mirror gun.
And
It's to destroy the dagger. That's
yeah,
why they have it.
and so Eobort laughs because he's like, "There's no way that this girl would be that smart. She must be manipulated by somebody else." And if she's from the future, I kind of feel like that's me. So he just laughs and he just says, clever girl, and goes on about his business. And then later in the season, you realize, like, that's the moment where he realized, I can manipulate this girl into getting me out. Basically, Eobort wants the dagger to destroy it because in the future, that dagger is what's stopping him from being able to use his power. So if it gets destroyed in the past, it'll be destroyed in the future, and then he's able to be released from that prison.
Yeah. Yeah, basically. Um, so sorry. I wanted to mention she, like you said, she uses a negative speed force. She comes back. You know, her and Barry are you know, not on the best of terms.
Yeah.
But she goes evil. She captures some people because she works with Weather Witch, and she works with this other chick. And what's her what's it called? yeah, they work together, and then the Flash shows up. She's like, "I'm gonna kill these people if you don't show up and show your identity." So he shows up. He's like, "I am the Flash," and then she's like, "Is he drunk?" It's actually Sherlock like
Yeah.
mimicking the moves. It's hilarious. It's honestly hilarious. Um, but they make up, and like you said, they make the mirror gun, right? And they're about to use it, and then that's when Ralph is like, "Wait a second." He starts putting all of this together, and he's like, "No, don't do it." Um, but I'm trying to think. I don't think it works because later on,
Yeah, yeah. They were going to destroy the dagger with the mirror gun, and he realized that somehow he just was able to make some connection that you shouldn't be destroying that. But and what that does is I think that ties into something that we didn't talk about, which is the reason why Barry took Nora to the future and dropped her off is because they found out that she was working with Eobard. But I'm pretty
yeah,
sure it was
Sherlock.
Sherlock who figured that out.
Sherlock figured it out. I was gonna mention that. I didn't know if you wanted me to.
No. It's fine. I
Sherlock's
just
really
can't
brilliant.
remember exactly what led Ralph to be so dead set against destroying the dagger. Because I know that he didn't know that it was Eobard. You
Well,
know.
he puts two and two together. Um, but what's it called? Um, right. So Caitlin finally, she has a showdown with her dad. She beats him. They, I think they use the metahuman cure on him, so everything's good.
Mm-hmm.
She's with her dad. Everything's happy, and then Cicada shows up, dead, killed off. He's dead. He's gone. And she takes a device that he was working on, and she uses it as a way to kill all metahumans.
Mm-hmm.
So Team Flash shows up. They disarm the thing, and they use the mirror gun and the dagger, and I believe it doesn't work. So basically, they're down to their last option. They go to see Grace, and they give her the metahuman cure. It doesn't work. Um, so they realize as long as that dagger exists, she will exist. So they have to do it. They have no choice. They destroy the dagger. Evil Cicada, Grace wiped from history, and wiped from the future.
Yep.
Right as he's about to be executed,
Mm-hmm.
dagger's gone, and he escapes and he kills everybody. I
Yep. Kills
believe.
everybody.
Um, so Barry and Nora show up, and you know
They
they
reversed
kind of.
time so that all those people that Eobard killed are no longer dead.
Oh, did they? I don't remember that.
Yeah.
Um,
It's
so
it's
basically,
one of Excess's powers that doesn't make sense.
they have like a little race. They have a fight, and Nora starts disappearing from the timeline.
Which, by the way,
And
Eobard was beating their ass by himself.
yeah, he was. He was. Um,
Yeah, Nora gets erased from the timeline.
well, she starts to, and Barry's like, "How do I save her?" He's like, "You
You
got
can
to
use
take
the
her into the
negative
negative speed
speed
force."
force.
And Barry does it. He's like, "Okay, I'm gonna do it." And then Nora's like, "No, like I know that feeling. I don't ever want to do that. I'd rather be a good person
Yep.
than be in the timeline." Basically, she
Yeah.
pulls like a hero move,
Yep.
and Barry and Iris hold her as she disappears, and
Yep.
that's got to mess some
Which, by
parents
the
up.
way, Eobard runs, just takes off.
Oh yeah, he's gone. Zoom,
Yeah.
completely gone.
Yeah.
Um, but some closing out points. Cisco ends up taking the metahuman cure. He's all
With
happy. He's gonna live a normal life now. Um,
Camilla, which was stupid, by the way.
and the biggest thing, and this is how we end the season. This is our big cliffhanger. Crisis on Infinite Earths. It shows how it's always several years later. Well, then it says 2019, as in
Yeah,
Crisis on Infinite Earths
yeah.
is next year.
The newspaper had
Oh,
always said 2024, and it changed to
hmm
2019. So that was the big dropper, baby.
that's the end. And oh, wait a minute. 2019. Oh yeah, we forgot. The crossover for this year was Elseworlds. It's a really fun crossover, but we'll talk about that in our other podcast.
All right. Um, I still feel like there were a lot of good moments outside of the cicada thing. Um,
Hmm
a lot of good moments, good stuff with Eobor, good stuff with Caitlyn, good stuff with like
hmm
Grodd and King Shark, as you were saying. But unfortunately, with Cicada being such a heavy part of this of the season, he wasn't
Yeah.
really just a kind of background villain. You know, he was really a main. He was a big time villain. You know, and he wasn't very good. And so for that reason,
Mm.
unfortunately, I'm still gonna keep it at a. I think I did a 7.5. I think I'll still have to keep it there. Unfortunately, uh, Cicada's motive
Okay.
just wasn't great.
No.
The debate and switch was horrible. That was probably one of the
Mm.
worst I've ever seen. Um,
See, if
and
they had just, oh, sorry, I
no,
didn't
go
mean to
ahead, go
interrupt.
ahead. They
If they had
just
just
were.
ended it there and just brought Eobard for the rest of the season, it'd been fine. Nobody would have
It would
complained.
probably I would have probably put it at an 8 if they did that.
Yeah,
I would probably have put it
me
at an
too.
8. Yep, that would have got it an
Um,
8. But unfortunately, they didn't do that. They made us look like fools,
doofuses.
straight
Uh,
doofies.
um, I gotta say, man, after talking about it, I think I'm gonna stay at a 7. Definitely gonna stay at a 7. Um, it's not as bad as season 4, and it's not better than season 3 in my opinion. So yeah, we're keeping it at a 7. That's where we're gonna
Nice,
keep it.
good. Well, we are making our way. Seems like we'll be talking about. We'll do another Flash podcast next week. Uh,
Oh,
what that season's not that bad, honestly. It's really not.
uh,
We'll talk about that season. And it looks like we're kind of churning away at some of these series. So pretty
mhm.
soon we'll have to start switching it up. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you guys for coming and checking out the podcast. If you like the video, like it. If you think someone else might like it, share it. And if you want to see more, really hope that you will subscribe. Beep. Oh, that's the wrong thing.